everybody. I'm Kristin Hostetter, editor of Snooze in the Voice, and my guest today is Eric Henderson, who is the founder and owner and general big cheese of Meteorite PR. He is a legend in the outdoor industry, in the PR world. Obviously, we are in a crazy time. It's been a really disruptive, really strange, to say the least, Q2 spring for the outdoor industry and for the world. So I thought it'd just be fun to kind of talk about what's going on in your world, what your take on all of this is, and solve some of these big problems, right?
Sure.
Solve them all right here in 10 minutes.
No pressure on me at all on a Tuesday morning. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming to me as a friend and someone that's been in it for a long time. It's been wild, to say the least. From the retail, the wholesale, small business owner, as well as just trying to teach kids how to do school online. So there's been a lot of learning, I think, for all of us in the industry. And I think we can solve some problems, honestly. I do think that there is some solutions that will come out of this. I don't know how much of it we'll get to today, but I think the first thing that I'm really seeing is this type of interaction, you and I, and the creativity.
So what's it like in the world of PR today? I mean, it's got to be challenging, right? Budgets are being tightened. I think you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, "Oh, Haas, PR is the first thing to go when budgets start getting looked at." And I corrected you, and I said, "No, Handy, advertising is the first thing to go. PR is the second thing, right?" But no, seriously. Yeah. What is it like in the world of PR today? What kind of conversations are you having with your clients? What have you shifted in terms of, the types of conversations that you've been having that maybe you'd never saw coming?
Right. No, it's a really good question. Ultimately, we did have to act fast and react pretty quickly on our feet. Spring is a time when we're getting ready to launch new products. We're getting ready to get short leads, we call them. So things that are hitting online, if it's a new boot or a new jacket or a new helmet, that's kind of the engine around PR in the spring. We quickly had to pivot, honestly, and go after a more editorial-based opportunity with journalists and media, ultimately because we wanted to be sensitive to the fact that brands were shutting down. They couldn't ship. Budgets were being scrutinized or looked at in terms of every dollar counts. And so as soon as you ship a product from a PR standpoint, that hits your bottom line. And then obviously the sensitivity around the unknown. I think you and I both know it's really fun to talk about boots and skis and helmets, but in the face of COVID-19, P-Tex and or Pertex or even Gore-Tex is really not that much fun to talk about when you're.
It's funny, you said the word pivot, and if there is like a single word that sums up these last 6 to 8 weeks, I think pivot. I've heard that word more than anything else from pretty much every conversation I've had. Pivot, pivot, pivot. In fact, someone yesterday told me, I'm not pivoting, I'm pirouetting now because I'm just pivoting. And that's kind of what it feels like, right? Regarding some of the brands you work on, because the products that are in stores right now aren't selling. And so when stores start to open up again, brands or retailers aren't really going to be interested in bringing in new product. They want to get rid of what they have, right? Sell-through is what I think is on a lot of retailers' minds right now. So,
right. And there's a couple of things that come to mind on that. First, obviously, just keeping my PR hat on. It affects how we traditionally have thought of the cyclical cycle of marketing and public relations, right? You always have 6 new products per 6 brands or 10 brands or how many brands you have in an agency. And so you've got, let's just say 25 new products to talk about going into spring 20 for 21. Right. Well, the reality is that those, new products for 21 they were already in sort of production, but at the same time, what's it going to look like for those retailers, like you say, and how many of those orders were actually cut, or how many of those orders were affected. So that affects us on a PR side. It's been wild to see certain brands, for example, go off map pricing. I think the map pricing conversation is a big conversation in the outdoor industry.
Yeah, it's like a map vacation is the way that I've heard some people refer to it. And most people that I've talked to believe that once stores start to open up again, we'll see those prices bump back up. But there's so much unknown.
And what sell-through is there, and then what brands are bringing unique programs to the market for their specific retailers, and then what retailers or what brands are also doing really well online.
Right.
There's been a big spike in sort of e-commerce,
Right.
and sort of we've seen a lot of people buying products from specific wholesalers that maybe weren't doing super well initially, and now they're like, oh, I could get this at X price on this X brand's website for a really good deal. So we're going to open up and we're going to get back to normal, but we are going to see residual effects for many, many months.
Yeah, I would say years, probably.
Very possible.
So that kind of leads in nicely to another question that I had, because we're all having a lot of conversations about trade shows and what's going to happen. Outdoor retailers canceled, Grassroots is canceled. So many events have been canceled for the spring, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you attended any of the virtual offerings, trade show offerings that have happened? Like last week was the Reveal conference, which I dipped in and out of, which I think was the first one that I've seen come to market. And then coming up in June is the Thin Air conference, which really seems quite different, maybe next level, more of a virtual reality thing. Just wondering what your take on all this is, because obviously it does not replace all of us being, together at a show, but it's what we have right now. And just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to the answer of it, but I'm going to back up a little bit before I go there. And what I'm going to say is it's about time. And the only reason I say that is because I'm old guard, and we knew that something was going to change. We've been talking about it. You and I have talked about it. What's this model going to look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And I think we all had this in our minds. And we know that there's this Gen Z that's coming. We know there's a more digital savvy buyer and or marketing manager in these brands that have the skills and don't have the term that you and I have used in the past. They don't have the time in the trenches, right? We've got 20 some odd OR shows under our belts, right? And we've got X amount of, media trips under our belts. There's a younger generation that are way smarter than I am, but they just don't have the time in the trenches. So I think this dawn of this new digital age, as much as it's like maybe difficult for me, on a personal level, like I'm not the most digitally savvy person, it was going to come. It was going to happen. So what I feel about it in my business is still unknown, honestly. I don't know how we're going to adapt. I don't know how brands are going to get that personal interaction, that chispa, if you will, around face to face or a high five.
Yeah, because how do you get people stoked about your new products when you can't stand there and show it to them? You know? How do you do it? Like, what you guys have to be talking about that, right?
I think there's multiple ways of doing that based on the tools that we're given. So we're working right now with some content creation teams to build some highlight reels. We're working with local restaurants and breweries in these hotspots that do have media in them, where we can deliver and build these sort of curated care packages, if you will, that allow some sort of engagement with the journalists and media to learn about the new really amazing pen that you can rappel off of, and also, have some sort of digital engagement. We're also doing and working on sort of, it's kind of called like a swag grab or swag scavenger hunts around different hotspots that have media in them. Denver, Boulder obviously is a big one for us, but this was going to happen. I hope that we can get back to seeing each other in the hallways. You know how I love just hanging out on like the main intersections and just high-fiving people as they come by. I miss that. I miss the thought of not being an outdoor retailer. But us older folks are going to have to somewhat adapt and hopefully mentor the younger generation that's creating these great ideas.
Yeah. And, one thing is for sure, everyone is saving a lot of money by not going to these big shows. It sounds like your brands, at least, are probably going to be taking some of that money and using it to send out media samples, because that's the only way we're going to be able to see them, and doing these scavenger hunts. I love that idea. That sounds super fun. I hope you do one in Boston.
We're looking at it. We're looking at it.
Especially, I don't know how many other journalists are here in Boston, which would mean the chances of me winning would be pretty high.
You get the whole gamut, Not
that I'm competitive or anything.
No, there's nothing competitive about you, Kristin.
Hendy, thank you so much for talking with me today. It was great to see you.
Yeah, and I was going to say the other amazing thing about these digital conferences is that you can be business on top, and then you can wear your pajamas on the bottom.
Awesome. Right on. Thanks, Hendy.
Thanks for having me.
Please check us out at snoozenet.com and sign up for your free copy of the spring-summer issue of The Voice at snoozenet.com in the upper right corner of our homepage.